Hi there, my name is Brenda Titus, and thank you for joining me for my year recovering from retinal detachment. This is the 18th video in my series, and today we will be talking about complications. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I definitely recommend that you start at the beginning. I am going through a pretty step-by-step process, but if you're interested in learning right away about complications, then you can start here too. As a reminder, this is my personal story, so I will only be talking about the complications that I personally experienced. And it is also a reminder that I'm not a medical doctor. I'm really just here sharing my own journey. And if you have any concerns about that you might be experiencing either a retinal detachment or complications, I highly recommend that you speak to a medical professional. So far we've gone through the part about that we aren't just dealing with one retinal detachment, we are dealing with two retinal detachments within a period of about 6 months. So today I'm actually going to talk to you about a complication that I experienced in my second retinal detachment surgery. So at the 2-week follow-up appointment after my retinal detachment on my second eye, which is this one, I learned that there was a bit of a complication. And I think originally my understanding was, I was in some shock. And I couldn't see very well, but how my brain processed it was scar tissue. So that was and I just kind of wanted to explain it through the process of what I understand is happening. So originally he kind of referred to it as scar tissue, and he showed me like if there was like a bump in the road. So if like you've got, the flat road and then a little bit of a bump. And so he said, well, we just kind of need to sit back and wait and see what's going to happen. And that makes sense. I knew I was right in the middle of my recovery. And so I thought, okay, well, so I'll see him in another month and we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. And that was my first red flag, as this was a little bit more, of a longer process, because when we dealt with the first eye, I had gone to see him probably like once a month. And he said, all right, I will see you in 3 months. I think was what he said. And I went, wait, that's a really long time for me to just sit here with my eye having this complication. And he said, well, but there's literally nothing that we can do right now. We just have to wait. And I said, but 3 months? And he said, yep, we'll see you. And so I said, okay, is there anything I should do? No, there's nothing that you should do. There wasn't, rest more. There wasn't exercise more. There wouldn't have been anything, and literally, he just looked at me and said, no, there's just nothing you can do. There's nothing that you can really do to make it worse, but there's also really nothing at this point you can do to make it better. So I cried my tears and I left. Now, what I will add, since I'm specifically talking about the macular pucker, by the way, that's what we've ultimately, I believe, called it, is a macular pucker. So originally my understanding was like scar tissue. I believe by maybe my appointment later, or at some point I started seeing in my paperwork something to the effect of a macular pucker. So how I kind of think about it, and I'll maybe add a link down in the comments, how I kind of envision it after talking to my doctors at this point is they kind of say it's almost like, you're the cover of your macula, and then it's like if you were to put saran wrap over it. So like that, and then there's this, I think many of us know that, with saran wrap, it gets all tangled and then warped a little bit. And so there's just this one little spot, but that means it's not flat. And since it's right on the range of vision, that means actually that my vision is warped. So how that is playing out at this point, let's see. So I'm about almost exactly 6 months since my surgery. So if that helps as we think about it that way. So at about 6 months post-surgery, I have a bit of double vision. So what happens is that instead of seeing a straight line across, like if I were to look and see, a straight line, it would actually kind of bend off like this. So everything kind of goes like this, and then it just kind of bends down a little bit. And so I spent actually quite a bit of time explaining to my doctors when they would do the vision tests. I would say, first I said it's warbled. That was the word I decided on, warbled. Actually, after I had my cataract surgery and then my vision was clear, that was actually when I really understood that it was a problem. We'll be talking about cataracts in a future video. So that was when I could really tell, oh, I could really see the impact of this bend. And last week I spoke to the ophthalmologist about it, and he looked at it and he said, well, yeah, it's still making its way. And of course I do different things to test my vision to see how it's progressing. And I can definitely see that at this point, it's that kind of bend where I see a line, or anything really, but a line is the most obvious. There's that little bit of a bend. And so then what happens is when I use both eyes together, it creates two lines. So, or if I see a line of text, I see a straight line with one eye and I see a bent line with the second eye. And so that is a complication, and it has been unpleasant. So I've been patient, and I've just kind of said, okay, well, it's literally all I can do at this point is wait. During this time, I guess it is helpful to think about, as I kind of think about it, okay, it's only been 6 months since my surgery. So I'm trying. Well, this is when I should talk about the idea of not putting a timeline on our healing. I have some sort of belief in how long it should take, but of course, I don't know how long it should take to recover. And so but it is kind of just become some of my assumption or my thought process about, healing and recovery and things like that. So I know that technically I'm going to see the doctor, the retinal specialist, in a month from when I'm sitting here right now. So that will have been, about 7 months since the initial incident, and we'll see, what he wants to do. But largely what I'm hearing so far is we're going to continue to wait. So thankfully, honestly, during the time that I've been waiting through this recovery, they were able to assist me with other things that we'll be covering in the next episode, which has to do with cataracts. So I will leave you with that little bit of cliffhanger about the second complication, which we'll be covering next time. So the big takeaway for today, again, regardless of what kind of challenge you're going through, is that sometimes there's nothing that we can do but have patience and wait. And I understand that can be complicated and it can be hard. Believe me, I understand how complicated and hard that can be, but sometimes that's all we can do. The second takeaway that I'll remind you and everybody about is that we really can't put a timeline on our healing, our recovery. Even in my hypnosis office, I have a plan of how we're going to process the issue that we're working on. But of course, there's also sometimes literal physical healing, and sometimes even how the body needs to experience that healing. So we can't necessarily just completely have a goal and a deadline on those things. We just kind of have to have patience and live life the best that we can during that wait and during that process. And so that is what I have to share with you today. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you come back for the next episode, which, like I said, will be on another complication, which is cataracts. Have a wonderful day.